Hail comic book fans! Today we're talking about RIPPAVERSE'S ALPHACORE Issue 1, written by the legendary Chuck Dixon and the artist Joe Bennett. Now, the ALPHACORE are part of the RIPPAVERSE'S new comic book universe. The ALPHACORE is the superhero police force, right? They handle the things the regular police can't, right? Which are excepts, right? Which are people with abilities, exceptional abilities in this world, and they pretty much get them and lock them up in this special prison, which was actually shown within Yara issue 1, when she went in there and destroyed everything and the criminals got loose. But now we get a more deeper look inside of these characters, right, of who the ALPHACORE is. And I feel like in this issue we get to know more and understand more of the leader of the ALPHACORE, Brian. And he's pretty much, you can sum it up to the Superman quote, like you could sum it up to somewhat of that. I really wouldn't say he's a Superman. He's more of a Captain America because he was a soldier first, and with how he carries himself within the story that we see. Now we see he's a lot more brutal with his methods on how to handle crime, right? And obviously we see within this book that he's like, people talk to him, his boss talks to him pretty much like that, like you can't act like you can't use the same things, do the same things you would do. You're not in the military anymore, right? You are a police force, right? And I think that that's something that is very detailed within certain stories, right? Because the transition from doing one form of a job to another cannot be the easiest thing to do, right? Especially on somebody on the caliber and on the level of working with the ALPHACORE and being who Brian is, because Brian was a part of the War of Separation, which that book is coming, and that pretty much was where Texas became its own country. There was a lot of superhumans involved. It was a massive event, right? So he's going from that to this, and I want to see more insight and just spend more time with his character going forward with the ALPHACORE, like ALPHACORE 2 and so on and so forth. And within the story, it's like 2 to 3 books in one, right? Because we see these awesome villains and they're wreaking havoc, and this is a normal job, for the ALPHACORE, right? This is where they come into play, and this is where we see the other members of the ALPHACORE, right? And they come in, and the thing about the ALPHACORE is that they're not really super powered beings, right? They just have enough to be able to take care of said situation, right? And I found that to be interesting as well. They don't have these massive powers and abilities in this large catalog of abilities. They just have enough to be able to handle whatever situation that may come their way, right? And I feel like we're going to see more members, like more people part of the ALPHACORE as the story goes along. And the other members of the team, the quiet one, right? He kind of reminds me of a Snake Eyes, only because how silent he is, but he's probably the most dangerous part of the team, hands down. Braxwell. And we see Braxwell when he takes down the bad guys, and as you read the story, you find out he has flight, and his abilities are very minor, but he's very capable, right? He's very versatile with what he can actually do. And Valdez, the woman part of the ALPHACORE, which has the green lasso, her and Brian get into it, and with her character, she's very interesting as a character. I don't know where I would necessarily put her in, right? Because she's not like a very bossy, push you around person. I just feel like she feels like that Brian really didn't have the same level of respect she probably would like him to have. And within the story, there's so many characters. Again, this is like a 2 to 3 books in one, because Valdez, she goes on a mission with this one guy, right? They tag him along. He's also an accept, right? His power is like electricity and energy, and his character is very interesting as well. He's probably, like, I would say, the biggest part of the story towards the end, and I really like that when they take a character that you may not have really paid attention to, but towards the end they really expand. And I love this back and forth, right? Because Valdez and her partner in this situation are trying to fight and get this dude, the electricity guy, which also has electricity powers, this old guy. And he's literally like if a crackhead had energy powers, and he was a psychopath, like a legit psychopath on top of it. And they're going back to fight him. And then you have Brian trying to fight this massive like country dude, like lava monster. And the panels going back and forth, and it's showing this amazing art. Joe Bennett does such an amazing job with the art in this book. Like each panel and page is not wasted at all. And this is just my opinion, right? Between all the Rippaverse books so far, the ALPHACORE is one of the best written and has some of the best art, right? And the writing in this story is done so well because it's by veteran Chuck Dixon. He knows how to write within this style, and these characters are written so well. Just within the first book, you understand the entire team, and you understand the people around the team, and you understand the villains and their personalities and what makes them tick as well, all within this book. And it wasn't done by giving just a lore dump. He did it within the dialogue, right? Because there's a way when you just tell the reader how this person is, and then you have the way to where you make the characters talk to themselves, and within the conversation the reader understands what kind of people they are. Because just like in real life, right, if you have a conversation with somebody, you get to understand who they are within the conversation. And I feel like Chuck Dixon understands that so well, and that's why it works so well within these characters in this story. And as the story goes on, their ship is taking over, and Braxwell is trying to save people. Brian tries to stop the ship himself, and this is one thing that's very important to look at, right? How strong is Brian? And he's not strong enough to stop the ship himself, right? So that lets me know within this, okay, he has a certain limit to how strong he actually is as a character. Maybe obviously in the future, like many comic book characters, he gets a power up, but in this situation, he is not strong to stop himself. Instead, it's the guy from earlier, it's Valdez's partner, that sacrifices himself to stop the ship from crashing. And he's the unsung hero of this book, and I'm not very sure I've heard enough about him, right? Like amongst the people that read this book, he deserves a lot more props than he does, because he saved a lot of people by sacrificing himself. And the ALPHACORE figures out who's behind this, and they let them know that. Well, that's all I have for this book. I loved ALPHACORE issue 1. Everything was great about it. Like, share, and subscribe for more.